Hey everyone, so when I uploaded my last video on the MK8092 Android PC stick, many viewers on Reddit, as well as other communities that their video was submitted to, asked if I could perhaps perform a review demonstrating the performance of a quad-core unit instead of a dual-core unit, which the MK8092 was. Luckily, I was approached by W2Comp this week, a link to the store is included in the description, and was asked whether I would like to test out their latest product, which was the Podoor T518 Android Mini TV stick. Needless to say, the focus of this video is to test out the quad-core unit and to see how it performs running Android 4.2.2 Jelly Bean. Now, before I begin the review, for those who are getting freaked out at the length of the video, I just want you to point you to the description, as it contains a detailed breakdown of the video and times where I start discussion on a particular topic. That way, you have the ability to skip and view only the sections that you may be interested in. I try to be as descriptive as possible when testing the product, which unfortunately translated into the epic length of this video. So, let's start with the specifications of the unit. The Podoor T518 is, like mentioned before, a unit running on the ARM Cortex-A9 quad-core processor, which runs at a frequency of 1.65 GHz. Similar to the MK809 and various other Android sticks on the market, the GPU is a Mali 400 GPU running at about 500 MHz. In turn, I expect that the 3D and graphics performance of the unit will be very similar to other Android mini TV sticks on the market, such as the MK809. The unit contains 2 GB of DDR3 memory and has a built-in Bluetooth 3.0 module. Internally, about 8 GB of NAND flash is built into the unit. However, accounting for space utilized by the Android operating system, only about 5 GB or so of space is available for actual storage of applications as well as media. As you will see later on in the review, one of the strong points of the Podoor T518 unit is its wireless capability. While the wireless chipset only supports the 2.4 GHz band and not the 5 GHz band, the external antenna that's built into the unit results in a surprisingly usable wireless connection. This has been the negative aspect of many TV sticks that have preceded the T518. Last but not least, the unit outputs in 1080p through HDMI. I believe that the kernel that the unit uses is a 720p kernel, which upscales to 1080p. Unlike the MK8092 video, I will be testing the unit using its default stock kernel and ROM. In turn, no overclocking or third-party optimization of Android 4.2.2 has been performed on the unit. I expect faster performing custom ROMs to be available for flashing as developers get their hands on the TV stick. As is the tradition on YouTube with any new product, we will start with an unboxing of the unit and will also detail the accessories that you may expect to find included. The T518 is snugly packed in a foamy enclosure and comes wrapped in a protective bag. And here's how the unit looks out of the box. The red bar on the left hand side is an antenna that can be repositioned to obtain a better wireless signal. At the rear end of the unit, we have a micro USB input for attaching accessories, as well as a full-sized USB 2.0 port. This is where we connect the keyboard and the mouse, or a game controller or something like that. At the side of the unit, there's another micro USB port. This one, labeled DC, is used to power the unit, as it does not receive power directly over HDMI. The TF slot, besides its power input, is where up to 32 GB of micro SD memory can be placed, in order to expand the storage available for apps as well as data. To my knowledge, the FN button is used to upgrade the unit's firmware, whereas the R button is used to reset the unit. It should be noted that there is an LED indicator behind the R label, which lights up when the unit is powered on. As mentioned before, the unit features a wireless antenna that can rotate 90 degrees on either side. Positioning of this antenna allows one to obtain a better wireless connection. This is one of the unique features of this device. The unit itself is quite small. As you can see, it's smaller than a pen. Removing the cap at the top reveals an HDMI connector that will allow you to plug the device into a capable monitor or a television set. If you're like me and have an HDMI cable running from your television that you would like to connect this unit to, you may need to purchase a female-to-female HDMI coupler. Note that this is not included in the box. As for additional accessories included in the packaging, you get a micro USB to a USB 2.0 cable. This is used to power the unit. Additionally, you also receive an HDMI extender cable in case your TV is wall mounted and the HDMI inputs are located behind the TV, in which case it would be pretty difficult without the cable in order to plug the unit into the back of the TV. You also receive a micro USB to a USB 2.0 adapter in order to utilize the second micro USB port found in the rear of the unit. Last but not least, you receive a wall wart adapter to power the unit with. For those rare few of you that enjoy reading manuals, you may find it exciting to see that the manual is one of rather high quality. It is perfectly legible. Moving on, in this part of the video, I will take a look at the unit and how it functions. This is my first time booting the unit, and right off the bat, it is easy to tell that the stock ROM does not use a default Android launcher. The launcher is likely a proprietary one, made by the manufacturers of the device, and I have to admit is quite smooth. Regardless, upon connecting to Wi-Fi, I will likely convert it to Nova Launcher HD, which I utilize almost religiously on all my Android devices. One thing that should be noted is the noise that's in the background is not actually from the device itself, it's actually from my computer's fans that are running at full speed at the moment. Going into the settings panel, the Wi-Fi is enabled by default and reports on the SSIDs in my surrounding area. Additionally, the About Device tab reveals that the device runs on Android 4.2.2 as expected. However, with the announcement of Android 4.3, I would expect a firmware upgrade from the manufacturers in the near future. One of the biggest issues that I've experienced with Android Mini TV sticks in the past revolves around the poor wireless reception. With my MK809 Wi-Fi was simply unusable for the most part. With this in mind, I really wanted to see whether the external antenna design of the T518 aided in the wireless connectivity of the device. Although my wireless SSID was detected, it should be noted that the chipset in this device only allows for connection with networks running in the 2.4 GHz band. My 5 GHz Netgear access point did not show up in the list of available SSIDs. I was able to connect with my WNDR 4000 router from Netgear without any issues whatsoever. Loading a Wi-Fi analyzer, which, by the way, was included by default, indicated a signal strength of -60 decibels, dBm, which is pretty good. The lower the number in dBm readings, the better the signal. As you can see by the time graph, the signal strength is consistent around -60 to -50 dBms in my case. Here is my GSM Galaxy Nexus running Wi-Fi analyzer from the same location as a comparison. As you can tell, it too obtains a signal strength of around the -60 dBm mark. The presence of more SSIDs is likely due to the fact that the Galaxy Nexus is able to connect to 5 GHz networks, as well as the 2.4 GHz networks. Now, it's time to test the actual wireless performance of the device by seeing how well it performs when browsing the internet. This is an activity I assume most of you will use the Android stick for. I know I do. To test the wireless as well as browsing performance of the device, we will be using the default Android browser that comes preloaded with the operating system. Text-heavy pages such as Google and Reddit seem to load without any difficulties. Here, I'm testing the ability of the device to play multimedia content from websites. As you probably noticed, the device didn't really struggle in order to load up the video and play it. It also buffers the video quite quickly. Going into full screen mode, getting out of the full screen mode, and things of that sort don't really impact the device's performance at all. It loads the video and plays it smoothly, regardless of whatever you do with the module. Okay, so text-heavy pages load fine, but what about image-heavy pages, as well as pages that use a lot of JavaScript and other elements? For starters, CNN didn't have any trouble loading on the device. Next, let's try BBC World, as this made my MK8092 crawl. By default, it loaded up the mobile version of BBC World, which really isn't all that demanding, so let's load up the desktop site. As is evident, despite the use of various images as well as JavaScript elements, the website seems to render as well as allow you to interact with the BBC webpage without any difficulties whatsoever. Okay, so for the third site, we want to try something that's entire purpose is to deliver high quality multimedia content. So we're going to try out Vimeo.com and see if it plays videos on Vimeo. Unfortunately, as you can probably tell, it refuses to play any video on Vimeo.com for some reason. Unfortunately, with the stock browser, no videos on the mobile version of Vimeo.com would play. So now we're going to go to another website that I usually visit a lot, which is Bloomberg.com. And one of the good things about Bloomberg is that it has a live stream. So, unfortunately, we've hit a roadblock with the default Android browser that's included with the device. However, this should not be a major setback, as Android offers various other browsers that we can install from the Play Store, which do have Flash support, so that we can use that in order to play our content. One that comes to mind is the Dolphin browser, which we will use in this video in order to demonstrate Flash feeds. So, as expected, the Dolphin browser has no issues with loading up the Flash stream, and it plays rather smoothly, as you'll see. So, let's try Vimeo once again to see if it works on Dolphin browser. And we seem to have no luck once again with the mobile site for Vimeo. Ironically enough, the videos on Vimeo play fine when we're on the desktop version of the website. This being said, you might not want to enable the HD stream while you're connected to wireless, as it does take quite a while to buffer. The non-HD streams buffer almost instantaneously on the other hand. If you're really keen on streaming HD content from Vimeo or other streaming services, I would highly recommend that you utilize the USB to Ethernet adapter that I showed you before. Once it gets going, the video doesn't really stutter at all. The last site that I'm going to visit to test out multimedia capabilities of this device and its ability to stream web content is YouTube. I just wanted to point out that both YouTube as well as Vimeo have their own Android applications that offer a far greater performance than their website counterparts. So this test wasn't really all that fair, as I really didn't test out their Android applications. One of the main uses for a device such as a Podoor T518 is to replace an HTPC. At least this was the case for me. Understandably, to take on this role, the device has to play 1080p files without any issues. Therefore, the next set of tests will expose the device to content of varying bit rates, starting with a 40 Mbps bitrate content, which is directly exported from a Blu-ray. The content will be played under MX Player, which has the capability to use both the GPU as well as the CPU for playback purposes. As you can probably tell, when the MX Player is configured to use software rendering instead of hardware rendering, the video stutters and is unplayable. Software rendering relies on the quad-core CPU alone to render content, instead of the GPU, which is a Mali 400. However, the same cannot be said for playback that relies on the GPU instead of the CPU to render content. It runs pretty smoothly when the GPU is enabled. This is a sample of a 40 Mbps file exported from a Blu-ray. So this should be the toughest thing that your unit faces, until 4K content comes out. It should also be noted that the unit was able to play back content with various extensions. Moving on, we're going to try out media playback with the Xbox Media Center, one of the popular HTPC applications. The XBMC interface is quite smooth on the device. Unfortunately, since the official XBMC application at the moment is not hardware accelerated, playback of high-definition content was impossible. This will change in the near future as hardware acceleration is added to the application. For now, A custom variant of XBMC can be downloaded that relies on the MX player for hardware accelerated playback. It should be noted that standard definition content plays without any issues on XBMC, even without the acceleration. Another popular movie streaming application to test out is Netflix, which runs without any issues on the device. Buffering as well as playback is quite smooth over Wi-Fi. The unit has a built-in Bluetooth 3.0 module. Although I don't really have any accessories that make use of Bluetooth on Android, I will demonstrate that it functions by pairing the unit with this headset. To start off the gaming section, I wanted to point out that Droid mode does not seem to function on the stock kernel and ROM combination. This is most likely due to the fact that the factory kernel does not have the UI input module loaded. You can load that in yourself if you'd like and have technical experience. For those who do not know what Droid Mode is a fantastic application that allows you to control your device using an Android smartphone or tablet. This is really handy when you want to play games on your mini PC stick that requires touch input. The application allows your smartphone to act as a touchscreen, allowing for multiple finger gestures and etc. I'm certain that the custom kernels created by the developer community will come with the module loaded. So, here I'm playing Angry Birds using my mouse. The game seems to run smoothly. And here's a demonstration of another game that I downloaded from the Play Store for free called Zombie Frontier. It runs smoothly as well. I really wish that Droid mode would have worked with this game, as using the mouse is really awkward. For some reason, the Fast and the Furious application will not function at all without a touchscreen. Running CPU-Z reveals that, as advertised, the unit is running on an ARM Cortex-A9 CPU with 4 independent threads. Each thread is clocked between the range of 312 MHz to 1.61 GHz. Additionally, the GPU renderer is a Mali 400, as expected. Additionally, the unit comes with 2 GB of random access memory, or RAM, which is 1 GB more than the MK8092 that I tested earlier. This explains the snappy performance of the unit when several applications are open, such as right now. It should also be noted that the device comes rooted out of the box. This allows loading applications such as Titanium Backup and AdBlock, which require root access. Interestingly enough, the screen resolution displayed on CPU-Z is wrong. I'm on a 1080p display. So now we're going to benchmark the unit using several applications. I'm going to speed up the benchmark process and go right to the results to shave off a minute or two from the video's length. If you're interested in looking at the unmodified benchmarking process, I will upload a separate video containing only that. It should be linked in the description of this video. Using 3D Mark's benchmarking test, the unit scored 2,725, which is a little bit above what the Galaxy Note 2 scored. By all means, this is a respectable score. The Galaxy Note 2 scored 2,526, which is about 200 points below what the T518 scored. This comparable score makes sense considering that the Galaxy Note 2 also uses an ARM Mali 400 GPU, similar to our unit. Next, we'll be testing the unit with AnTuTu benchmarking application. On AnTuTu, the unit received an overall score of 13,311. The comparison page indicates that this is a similar score to what the Google Nexus 10 achieves. And here's the device's performance in a nice chart form. It scores just a little bit below what the Google Nexus 10 scores, and above the last generation Google Nexus 7. Keep in mind, this is the last generation Google Nexus 7, not the one that was just announced. For the last benchmark, we'll be running tests using Vellamo. I really don't know how to pronounce the name of this software. If you want to see a non-sped up version of this benchmark test, please look at the link in the video's description. So the unit scored 1442 with respect to HTML5 benchmarking and 404 in the metal benchmarking test. The HTML5 benchmark results indicate that the unit performs slightly underneath the Samsung Galaxy S3, the international variant version of it, and it scores above the Sony Xperia S running Android 4.0.4 Ice Cream Sandwich. The Sony Xperia S runs the Qualcomm dual-core 1.5 GHz Snapdragon processor, whereas the international variant of the Samsung Galaxy S3 runs on a quad-core A9 Cortex processor. Additionally, The Samsung Galaxy S3 also uses a Mali 400 GPU, similar to our device, which explains why they performed very similarly in the benchmarking tests. Here are just some more results that I'll scroll through so you can see what the unit scored. And some results from the metal test. In conclusion, the Podoor T518 is a very capable device that has excellent wireless performance and was able to run a majority of the applications thrown at it without any issues whatsoever. Despite running on a stock Android kernel and ROM, the unit performed quite nicely, even better than my overclocked MK8092 that's running on the finless Bob 1.7 firmware. For those who require wireless performance, I would definitely recommend this unit, as I was able to browse the internet and perform other tasks despite being one story above my wireless router, the WNDR4000. The unit can be purchased from w2comp.com for $80 US. I will include a link to their store in the description of the video for those who are interested in purchasing it. Last but not least, I hope you found the information covered in this overview to be useful. It would be appreciated if you could perhaps leave feedback or like the video if you enjoyed the content. I enjoy hearing from my viewers and communicating with them. Thank you.